Well, Bernie Sanders not going quietly in the good night. In fact, he's getting more aggressive on the campaign trail. Here's an example.
She has been saying lately that she thinks that I am, quote unquote, not qualified to be president. Let me just say in response to Secretary Clinton, I don't believe that she is qualified. If she is through her super PAC taking tens of millions of dollars in special interest funds. I don't think that you are qualified if you get $15 million from Wall Street through your super PAC. I don't think you are qualified if you have voted for the disastrous war in Iraq.
A lot of air quotes going on there. And to be fair, Hillary didn't say he wasn't qualified. He not only went there, he doubled down. So is he acting more like he's got a chance to win, or is he burning some bridges in the process? Joining us now is Scott Levinson, president of the Advance Group. If he said to you, hey, you know, I'm coming out swinging, and you say, have at it, or would you have told him to temper down some of those remarks?
And I think, you know, people get carried away in the heat of the moment. Since those statements, he's dialed it down and made it clear Hillary's his preference over any of the Republican choices. And the fact is, any year like this, where the Republicans are getting more press for sniping at each other than the Democrats are, it's a good year for our party. Typically,
did he get hurt by the Daily News comments? Where there's a lot of basic stuff that he just, what's your plan with ISIS? Basically a shrug, confusing what the Treasury could do. Is it too inside baseball? Do people start saying, maybe he's not ready?
A revolutionary, even an evolutionary socialist, has trouble with this particular constitution, which is not structured for radical change. We're structured for incremental, slow.
It's pretty good, by the way. You must have done that line before. That was pretty good here. Now we get to Bill Clinton and his confrontation with protesters. Black Lives Matter.
Wait a minute. I don't know how you would characterize the gang leaders who got 13-year-old kids hopped up on crack and sent them out onto the street to murder other African-American children. Maybe you thought they were good citizens. She didn't. She didn't. You are defending the people who kill the lives you say matter.
Don, we remember 8 years ago, he had some problems when he lost it down in South Carolina, particularly where he thought that the black vote was abandoning him and it didn't come off well for him. I didn't see a problem there where he went. Did you think he went too far, or he stopped before he got over that line where he's going to be causing the wife, the candidate in this case, problems?
I agree with you. My first reaction when I heard about it was, I said, oh, is Bill using these kids for his sister soldier moment? That was my first reaction. And then when I saw that that wasn't the case, I understand that they're the kids, I understand they're activists and young people. But Richard, we have to put this in perspective. This is why I agree with you. It was, and we know this time well, Dave Dinkins, mayor, 2,000 people killed in New York City, all around the country. So they were super predators. They were. So what do you expect for him to do? And he was right to call them out. Perhaps Hillary should not have used that word super predator, but what else would you call what was going on? 2,000 murders in New York City alone. And since that time, we have looked at historic drops in crime going forward. So yes, I completely agree with you.
You hadn't heard the clip, but you had heard it. After you hear the clip, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I thought he was appropriate. I think when I first heard it, I thought, there goes Bill again, making it about him. And that's exactly where I go. It's always about him and not about his wife. And you know, Bill Clinton has not been as sharp as he has been for years this year. But I thought in that clip, I thought he was very good.
You know, we've got the New York primary just 11 days away, and the candidates are all doing the typical campaign activities. You got Hillary. She rode the subway. A little trouble, by the way, with the Metro card. I think it was 5 tries, whatever. But, by the way, everybody's got trouble with the Metro cards. Ted Cruz, he went to a matzah bakery in Brooklyn. Kasich, basically, God bless him, he ate his way through the Bronx here. You know, I got a question, Scott. Listen, everybody knows you got to kiss the babies, you got to do all the stuff, but in a day and age where, if anything, if you look at Trump and Sanders' appeal, largely it's been built on the idea that they're authentic. Love them, hate them, whatever. You don't have to figure out where they stand. Do the old rules of campaigning still apply, that you still gotta, the matzah bakery routine here, or showing you're a man of the people or a person of the people riding the subway? Does that still work or no?
Did we cover it on television tonight?
Fair enough.
And that is the question. How do you grab the news cycle?
But don't you risk, though, the pandering that people say, oh, don't patronize me. Bloomberg, you don't know what it's like to be a man of the people.
Anytime a candidate leaves their house, there's risk. Bill knows this, I know this. It's a volatile situation, but you need to win news cycles. And the one thing Trump has been masterful this year is focusing on winning every single news cycle, being the lead to the 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock news every day. Masterful. And that's what builds name recognition, and that's what gets votes.
But even short of winning the news cycle, which I don't think riding the subway or going to a matzah factory is going to win you the news cycle, but it's still a relatable way to connect to voters who are not nearly as focused on the campaign as we are. I mean, we spend all day and all night living and breathing this stuff. A lot of people, it's just casual. They might see a picture, they might see an image on the TV, but if you see John Kasich eating his way through the Bronx, you might think to yourself, like, hey, I've done that.
Andrew's right. Each of these pictures help build affinity to a specific demographic group, and to the extent that can make you look comfortable within that demographic, you're authentic.
But you also don't have a choice but to do it. I mean, if you're in upstate New York, have you eaten the Speedy yet? There's certain things that you just have to do, and the press will ask you, have you done that yet? Have you had the sausage here? Have you had the pizza there?
But let me make the counter. Think about the amount of times whenever we talk about candidates grabbing pizza or whatever, it's usually because the dummy used a fork and knife when he's eating, right? Or it's somebody's going to get a cheesesteak in Philly, right? And they want cheese instead of Cheese Whiz, they want Swiss on it. That's the story that comes out of these things, where they don't know how to be a regular Joe, and when they try to, it comes across as so inauthentic, to beat the term to death here, Bill, that it's not like it was before. Like for me, Ted Cruz, if years ago he said, all right, I'm going to go to the matzah thing. He knows he's got a friendly audience there and it stays there. No. Now the press are going to go there. They're going to say, what about your position on Israel? What about X? What about,
Right.
And it becomes the unscripted environment that are nightmares to guys like you.
They're nightmares. You go back to Sergeant Shriver, who goes into a Pennsylvania bar, and everyone's drinking, the La Trobe, whatever that is, and he ordered the Crevassier. You know what I mean?
I think Jimmy Carter got mayonnaise on his corned beef sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like you can't control that stuff, and it can kill news cycles. You can go 3 days. You can have a great message, you can have ads on the air, and just like that, you get wiped out. So, that's what good advance work is like, don't put mayonnaise on the pastrami, and don't, you know what I mean? You can fall into real problems.
It's covered differently now. Isn't it, Dom, than it was 30 years ago, where the guy got the pass? He goes to the event, he does the obligatory, he'll get the corned beef or whatever on St. Patty's Day. Now, they're waiting for him, right? And he or she doesn't get to dictate the photo op. Now it's looking for the guy to screw up and put something on the corned beef he shouldn't. Or this is an opportunity to talk about what they think about issue X, issue Y. It's gotcha. And to me, when it's set up in such a way, you're asking for it, I think, to a certain degree.
Well, believe it or not, this is why these guys here make a lot of money, these two. Because when a candidate comes to town, these guys will quickly, even if you're doing it while you're walking to the event, they will brief you. Like, for example, Iowa, right? If you watch the candidates, generally, they'll eat a little bit because they've got 4 events to go to, and they must eat a little bit. So while they're walking, they will, but I'm sure they'll tell you in a meeting in advance, listen, you have got to eat the fried sausage in Iowa at the fair, because if you don't, it will kill your news cycle. And here's how the good consultants will tell you how to eat it, what to put on it, and what to do after you're done eating.
And you got to tell the photographers no mouth shots, no hot dog shots like we ever had.
Right.
There's certain rules that everybody plays by on both sides.
Everybody's petrified by the tank photo with Dukakis, right? That must give you guys nightmares, right?
Lord, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Coming up next, a story that, I'll be honest, I thought was a one-day story, but now it turned into something potentially much bigger, and this thing could go to Gracie Mansion. Federal corruption probe shaking up the NYPD, and it could also, as I said, go right up to Mayor de Blasio. We'll have more on that after this.